What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network. Today we're talking the Braun Strowman episode of WWE Chronicle that went up, I believe, Payback Sunday or maybe Payback Saturday, the day before the Payback pay-per-view a few weeks ago. This was great stuff. And I honestly can't stress that enough. And I know I say that I sound like a fucking broken record. I say that with every episode I review of this show. Literally every WWE documentary ranges from good to great to amazing. I don't know if I've seen many WWE documentaries that were anything less than very good. But with Chronicle specifically, they do such a great job of honing in on specific stories from certain superstars. The Sasha Banks one was really, really good. The John Morrison one was all right. The Jeff Hardy one that I just talked about a month or two ago was also pretty solid. They do really, really good work with this stuff. The Samoa Joe one a couple of years ago was great. The Dean Ambrose one was amazing. Shinsuke Nakamura, they've done one on Roman Reigns, 2 parts. Charlotte Flair, I think, had one. Becky Lynch, among many other people. Rey Mysterio, I believe. Cain Velasquez when he was still here in WWE. The Braun Strowman one, though, hits differently. Very, very personal. It's not just a wrestling journey like, oh, what he's been going through from one pay-per-view to the next. Like, oh, Ricochet, he just won the fucking United States Championship. Like, listen, that stuff is all cool and whatever. But, like, this was very, very personal. The very first shot that we see on this episode of Chronicle is from January 14th, 2019. Not even this year. Literally a year and a half ago. Strowman had just had an impromptu meeting with Vince at Monday Night Raw. And you could clearly tell that the guy was heartbroken. And by the way, he cries a lot, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I honestly really respect that for a guy of his size, and he's so macho, and he's mean, and he has this intimidating look, blah, blah, blah. He's a guy that you would never really expect to break down the way that he does on this episode, telling the stories that he does. And the producers aren't getting these out of him. They're merely asking him questions. Like, oh, who were you talking to after you won the championship? Or, how frustrated were you? Blah, blah, blah. Like, they're just asking basic questions. He's taking it to another level, like in a great way. And I think in many ways, this episode of Chronicle was very therapeutic for him. So anyway, back to the meeting. I guess Vince had told him that it wasn't his time yet. Strowman was very upset. And if the timing checks out, this would have been, again, mid-January, of course. That was right after Braun was taken out of the Universal Championship match at the Royal Rumble. Not only did he go into that Royal Rumble pay-per-view and lose to Brock Lesnar, for the Universal Championship, he never even got the match. He beat Baron Corbin at TLC 2018 to earn himself another opportunity at Brock's Universal Championship at the Royal Rumble, and then after turning over Vince's limo or something on Raw, mere weeks before the pay-per-view, he was taken out of the match. And Finn Balor won a Fatal 4-Way, earned the opportunity instead, which was way better. It was a fresher match. It was a fresher opponent. It was a much better match than Brock and Braun probably would have been again, which they'd already done multiple times by that point. In multi-man matches, in singles matches, they had already done Brock and Braun quite a bit. I had no desire to see that again, but Braun obviously was not happy. And Vince flat out told him in that impromptu meeting at Raw, you're just not ready to be champion yet. You're not ready, Braun, to be champion at this current point. And Vince thought there was something that just wasn't right about Braun, did not put the belt on him quite yet. And Strowman said that he trusted Vince, he trusted the thought process, he trusted why he wouldn't put the championship on him. But he was pissed off, as anyone would be, from someone that you respect, from your boss, telling you, listen, I don't think you're ready, you're not ready for that top spot yet. I just don't want to put the championship on you. That hits deep. And you can really tell that affected him emotionally, and he was really pissed off about that. And he wants to cement himself, and he said this many times. He told this to me when I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, before the Extreme Rules pay-per-view earlier on in the summer, that he wants to be the greatest big man to have ever done this. So anyway, the entire Chronicle takes place from April 4th, right before WrestleMania. I mean, I was going to say it takes place before that, but it actually doesn't. So, because they filmed the Braun Goldberg, I mean, maybe it was before. They say April 4th because that was the first night of WrestleMania. It wasn't, they filmed that in late March. And I was going to say they didn't actually show footage of anything that happened at WrestleMania, but they did. Though it was taken from the WWE 24 that was just put out on WrestleMania 36. They talk about a lot of the same things. They show a lot of the same footage. It's still cool footage, and it should absolutely be included here. But that's just nitpicking. It doesn't really matter. It aired on April 4th. That's when people thought it took place. So whatever. And it goes through August 23rd, which is SummerSlam Sunday. So he talks about growing up in Hartford, Wisconsin. Now, he said Wisconsin, and I saw like in one of those, wherever he was in his hometown, and I saw like on a board or one of those water tanks or whatever, it said Hartford. And I'm like, I thought he said Wisconsin because I'm from Connecticut, and Hartford, there's a Hartford here in Connecticut, of course. It's a pretty big city. Not as much as New York City, but it's a pretty well-known city among, people who live here in Connecticut, obviously. So I'm thinking, why does it say Hartford? Then I realized there was a Hartford, Wisconsin. What an idiot I am. Anyway, so he told his parents when he was younger that he would make his dream a reality, and that his hometown is very accommodating, very welcoming, very nice. I'm always happy to see him whenever he comes home. He calls it his happy place. And we see him drive out to the wilderness, into the wilderness with like a cameraman or something. And he's like, he just stops the car, like the friggin' whatever he was in. And he goes, "You hear that?" And the producer goes, "Nothing." And Braun says, "Just the sound of nature, birds chirping, animals jumping around, blah, blah, blah." It's a very nice sound, very nice, relaxing sound to hear. And he talks about how thankful he is for his parents, for helping him along his journey, getting him into all these various things that he succeeded at over the course of his life. And then it gets a bit dark, and you probably heard this story by now because this was one of the bigger points coming out of this documentary. I have not heard him say this anywhere else before this documentary. And maybe he has, and we just weren't paying attention, but he said here that when he was a kid, he got into a major car accident where he was fine. I think he was the only person in the car that was okay. I believe it was him, his mom, and his dad. His dad was driving, his mom was in the passenger seat, and he was in the back seat. And I think they were coming home from like a Little League baseball game or something like that. They were on the highway. There was this guy, like a tractor trailer driver that I think that was asleep at the wheel. And they drove Braun's parents right off the road. So the dad went through the windshield, which is fucking scary as shit. And if that wasn't bad enough, the mom got thwacked right in the back of the head with like a Little League baseball trophy. Right in the back of the head. And it wasn't just a bump or like she had a concussion. She literally, I'm not even sure if amnesia is the right word. She forgot, amnesia is when you forget who you are. She forgot literally everything. Like when Braun's dad gave Braun, who I guess it was a baby, so maybe it wasn't like a baseball. I'm thinking it was like a Little League baseball game or something. It must not have been. There was a trophy in the backseat for some reason. And whenever Braun's dad gave Braun to Braun's mom, she would freak out, not only not knowing who Braun was, but literally not even knowing what it is. She was like a baby all over again in human form, like in an adult form, which is scary as all shit. And he gets really emotional talking about that, as you would expect. It's a really, really tough subject to talk about. And his mom had to relearn everything, and she acted like a newborn baby, he said. It was just really, really scary. So he brings up how his mom, he puts his body through so much, and being a wrestler and getting bruised and getting beaten and just being emotionally beaten around all the time, being told, "Oh, you're going to get the title. You're not going to get the title. Hey, you got to drive here," and all this other stuff, because his own mom refuses to give up. So what would it say about him if he did, And his parents, specifically his mom, made him who he is today. And he says that the last 5 years have been insane, because that day after the SummerSlam pay-per-view, exactly 5 years to that day, Braun debuted on Raw, with the Wyatt family attacking Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose. So it's exactly been 5 years since the guy debuted, from like the day after he lost the Universal Championship, coincidentally enough. So Vince, I guess, first saw Strowman when Strowman was a Rosebud in NXT, when he was the Rosebud for Adam Rose, that ridiculous costume that he used to wear. But I remember it because the guy stood out not only because of his size, because he committed to the character. He was over the top, he was goofy, he made the most of that opportunity. And he lists off all the accomplishments that he's had since then. Former Money in the Bank winner, greatest Royal Rumble winner, Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner. He has become an Intercontinental Champion, 2-time Tag Team Champion, now Universal Champion. The guy's done all of that in the span of 5 years. That's pretty impressive. Now, they have not booked Braun the greatest in those 5 years, specifically in recent years as a single star, at least since, I would say, late 2017. That being said, though, he's had a lot of success. A lot more success than I think a lot of people thought he would have, so that's pretty cool. And anyway, so he goes on to talk about how we got the phone call for being needed for WrestleMania 36 by Mark Carrano. We told the same story in 24. It's nothing new at this point, but it's still a cool story to hear. and how he had to drive 21 hours home from the Performance Center back to his own house. 21 hours, because this was right after the pandemic hit. No one was really traveling. He was close, and I mean, that's not close, but I mean, that's how far he drove just so he didn't have to take a plane home. I don't know if the company couldn't provide one or he didn't want one. I don't know. The guy seems he's not the type like, oh, let's go out in public without a mask. Like, he's said some dumb stuff in the past, but like when I met him back in early March before the pandemic became a pandemic, I actually met Braun in early March at like an autograph session, but it was the big event. It's like one of their biggest conventions for wrestling fans of the year. They do one in March, they do one in November. And he wasn't even shaking hands at that point. This was when we kind of knew there was something going on, but it wasn't as serious as it ended up becoming literally like a week later. But he was taking it seriously. He wasn't shaking anyone's hand. He gave me a fist bump, which was cool. But yeah, so maybe that was part of it. But either way, drove 21 hours home, got the phone call. We need you for WrestleMania. We're not going to tell you what it is until you get here. We'll fly out a plane for you, a private jet at this random-ass local airport in the area. And that's exactly what he did. He took the flight, got to the PC, woke up at 9 after going to bed at 1 or 2. And he shows up at the PC, and they tell him, listen, we need you to face Goldberg for the Universal Championship tonight. You got a phone call from Roman Reigns, he said, who gave him the endorsement. Like, dude, I got to stay home and take care of business with my family. I just had twins. I don't want to be exposed to any of the COVID stuff, so, I want you to take my place. Gave him the stamp of approval and said, listen, go out there and do business. You deserve it. And obviously that meant a lot to Braun, which was really cool. He also mentions how he idolized Goldberg as a teenager and how, he went out there and he did his job. He can't really do anything about the booking and, the circumstances and, there's no fans, blah, blah, blah. He just went out there and did his job. He did what he was supposed to do. He did what was asked of him, and he got a cool moment out of it, regardless of whether there were fans there or not. And he mentions how the current circumstances kind of force you to become more of a performer. There was no one to feed off of, which Braun does a lot with his character. You kind of have to improvise and, work off the cuff, which is kind of what he had to do at WrestleMania and has had to do since then. At any rate, Goldberg afterward, and we saw this clip in the 24 that came out a few weeks ago, a week before this, where Goldberg flat out told Braun, you deserve this. It's been a long time coming. And that obviously meant a lot to Braun. I thought that was really nice. And, he said that the title win is a sign that you could do anything you want to. This is a sign to all the people who doubted me, all the people who supported me, that I could do anything I set my mind to. And even if you're bullied and, just emotionally shattered rather, just know that you can do anything that you want to, regardless of what anyone says. They show him thanking Vince and Triple H in the back for believing in him. That was cool. Vince said, it's time to get to work. And he said the exact same thing to Seth. And I'll talk about it on the next Network and Chill, or one of the next upcoming episodes of Network and Chill, where Vince said to Seth, it's time to get to work. It's time to make some money. After Rollins thanked him for allowing him to win the championship that night. I guess Vince has that same reaction to everybody where he's like, time to get to work, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so the producer asked him, who did you thank after you won the championship? Who did you look up to and thank? And this is where he gets really emotional again, as he should have, because this is, it's really sad, and it kind of made me tear up a little bit hearing about it. But he said that he thanked his uncle upon winning the championship at WrestleMania, and his uncle was a big fan of him. He didn't know that, I guess, until after he passed, or as in his final few days, whatever. He never knew that his dad or his uncle was as big of a fan as he was of professional wrestling. And he talked to him on the phone a lot while he was on the road. Strowman did. And he said that he was there when he, took his last breath. He held his hand as he took his last breath. Like, how fucking, that's terrible. It's so sad. And he said that the uncle said that he always wanted Braun to be champion. So the fact that his uncle wasn't here to see him win the championship really hit Braun hard. So he looked up and he thanked him for it. And he could feel his uncle's hand right on his back when he won the championship that night. And I thought that was really nice. And he said even that, listen, the circumstances did not ruin my moment. If anything, I look at it as I help people take people out of the moment with my championship win. If I can get their mind off of everything going on in the world right now by just winning this championship and giving them a feel-good moment for some people I'm sure just hated it or whatever. I wasn't a big fan of it at the time just because it was so random. But in retrospect, it was the right move to make considering what we know now, But he said it still meant something to him a lot. It really did mean a lot to him regardless. So we fast forward to July 27th. They don't cover any of the June stuff, the feud with Miz and Morrison, which was trash, or the Firefly Funhouse Bray match and Money in the Bank. I'm glad they fast-forwarded through that garbage, but he's back in Hartford, Wisconsin, not Connecticut. And he mentioned how he stopped doing drugs and alcohol when he was a kid, and that's when he decided to turn his life around. That was not the path that he wanted to take. He thought he was always destined to be a loser. He always thought he was destined to be a flop, a failure, just a fucking nobody for the rest of his life, until he decided, no, that's not going to be me. And going back to Hartford and going back to all these places where he grew up brought back a lot of memories for him. And he never thought he would be where he's at right now. If God looked at him and told him, listen, you're going to be the Universal Champion in one of the main events of WrestleMania one day, and the face of Friday Night SmackDown, Braun said that he would never believe it. He would say, you got to be joking to me. You got to be kidding me. Like, that would never happen. And obviously now it has. He calls the gym his safe place, and he said he got sick of being picked on. And he mentioned this story again in the WWE 24, and we see a whole new side of Braun in this episode as well, where he got picked on a lot. He was told by a lot of people, including people he respected, that he would never amount to anything. And that hits hard, and he knew in that moment that he was going to make something of himself. We fast forward to early August, and this is where he gets a haircut. He called Vince, apparently. This is his side of the story here. He called Vince and told him, listen, I want to get rid of my crappy hair. That's what he said, crappy hair. He hated his hair. He doesn't have a lot left, as you could probably tell. And he thought, it looked bad. He thought it looked terrible. So he's like, why don't I just shave it, So he ran it through Vince, and Vince was like, oh, I'll give you a call back. And I love how he just texted or called Vince as opposed to like Mark Carrano or some shit. Vince is like, let me run it through legal, because you have to go through a lot of legality shit when you change your image, shave your beard, cut your hair, dye your hair, whatever, get a tattoo. There's, a lot of marketing deals, video games, action figures, promotional material, stuff like that. They have to make sure it's approved. And they got it approved. And Vince gave him a text back with the old thumbs up emoji, and Braun went to go get his hair shaved, his whole head shaved. And he looks actually pretty good in my opinion. And he said he feels so much better, he feels so much lighter without having that, 5 pounds of hair on the top of his head. And he sees it as a sign of him going back to being the monster among men, the old Braun Strowman that made him the monster among men in the first place. He talks, this is where it gets really emotional again. So he said that he was in Houston, like a Raw, right after the Elimination Chamber 2019 pay-per-view, where I think he lost to Braun Strowman, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe that was Fastlane. No, Fastlane it wasn't, because Corbin teamed up with Lashley and McIntyre against the Shield, so it couldn't have been that show. It was definitely Elimination Chamber, so maybe the next night or whatever. He didn't know if he wanted to do this anymore. He didn't know if he wanted to continue working for WWE. He didn't feel important to the company. He felt things were being dangled over his head, which sounds absolutely accurate, in the sense where they would like tease him as a world title challenger, and they would never go full throttle with him. Whether that was in late 2017, early 2018, late 2018, early 2019, it happened multiple times where they like teased this guy finally becoming the guy, and they never really went full throttle with it. And I feel like had he won the championship years ago, he would be better off right now, and he wouldn't feel as creatively damaged as he does, at least in my opinion. So I completely understand where he's coming from here. And he felt like he had enough, so he busted in on Vince one day at a production meeting when Vince just ushered everyone out of the room because Braun said it was important. He didn't have a boss-to-employee conversation with him, he said he had a man-to-man conversation with him, and that it really lit a fire underneath him, really, because he felt like he was spinning his wheels prior to that point. And Vince told him that he not only wants Braun in WWE, he needs Braun in WWE for the long haul. He called him one of his racehorses, and Vince might have been bullshitting the guy. He might have been fucking lying just to keep him around, and Vince is notorious for, doing stuff like that. He's done it a lot over the years with a lot of people, according to several sources. Not that I have, but, people who have worked there have said that. But you know what? Even if he was bullshitting, the fact that he would even say that at all to make this guy feel better is nice, because Braun was in a very dark place, and had Vince just been blunt with him and said, listen, we don't really give a fuck about you. If you want to leave, you can, and who knows what would have happened, So I thought that was nice. And he didn't know that Vince cared about him, Braun said. He realized that he was more than just a number. And, was this where... Oh, yeah, I missed it in my notes here. He said he was very thankful for that relationship that he has with Vince, because at several points he said he contemplated killing himself. That's serious, man. Had things, turned out differently and whatever, had he not talked to Vince, had he not come to that realization that he was wanted and needed and stuff like that, things could have ended way differently. That's really fucking scary. He says he should have talked to someone sooner, which is true, but That's really scary. You never know who might be going through stuff like that. Listen, I've never been the biggest Braun Strowman fan of all time. I am a fan of the guy. I do like the guy. But just the shit on the guy just for the sake of shitting on him, like calling him like a bad professional wrestler is one thing. But just to make this guy's life a living hell, like to tweet at him and message him and saying go kill yourself, which a lot of fans do more than you would probably think, which is disgusting. Doesn't do anyone any good, and it just makes things way worse. So don't do that. Just be a good person. Anyway, August 14th is when he's feeling stressed and tired. He said he was thinking about a lot of things. And, he just wants to get through it. There's a lot of shit going on, and maybe losing the championship is one of them, and not having a great reign is another. But he's got a lot of things on his mind right now. So he has the confrontation with Alexa Bliss on SmackDown. They show that. And the producer says, what do you say to the people that say that you didn't do anything to deserve that championship or whatever? Like, is this run proving that you are worthy, that you are deserving of this championship? And he's like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't deserve anything. Like, things are earned, not deserved. And he said, where am I in my notes here? He said, yeah, things are earned, not deserved, and it's all about doing his job. I don't care, what it is, and sometimes I have to do things I don't like and whatever, but it's all about doing my job, and I am doing my job, And he will continue to make the most out of things, even if the circumstances aren't the greatest. So we arrive at August 21st, the SmackDown right before SummerSlam. He arrives at the Thunderdome, and he's completely blown away. Like, he looks like a kid on Christmas morning. It's just a great scene. He calls it awesome. He talks to Vince about it before Vince goes out to open SmackDown, and Vince is like, kind of like subtly saying, can you, like, get out of here? I'm trying to focus before I got to go out on TV, which was funny. He's like, I'll leave you alone, boss, to get in the zone, and Vince said thanks, which was funny. But yeah, he said that he hopes his entrance came off as cool as it felt. To be out there and to have that energy, although there's no fans, but he thought it was a really cool experience, and he thinks it's the future of technology. We then see him doing the virtual meet and greets, which to me was a complete waste. It was like a 2-minute meet and greet for like hundreds of dollars, over $100. It's just, I'd rather, maybe for an in-person meet and greet, I kind of get that just because it's in person. I understand that, but like a virtual one to talk to someone over like Zoom for a minute or two, yeah, I don't know, it doesn't really sit well with me. But it did mean a lot to Braun. It meant a lot to the kids. It meant a lot to the kids that he talked to and the people that he talked to. He never thought he would be important. He never thought he'd be important enough for people to ask him, for kids to ask him, what's their favorite color, which I thought was funny. They show him lose to Wyatt. We see him lose to Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, at SummerSlam, where he lost the Universal Championship in the no-holds-barred match, the Falls Can Anywhere match, rather. Roman Reigns returns, lays out the Fiend, lays out Braun Strowman. And he's in a lot of pain after the match, but he said, listen, I was meant to be a WWE superstar, and I'm damn proud of it. And to close this thing out, he says, do what makes you happy as long as it doesn't infringe on someone else's happiness. And he thought, early on in his life, he thought he was destined to be a screw-up. But he's become addicted to entertaining people, and he's glad he's not down that path. He has no idea what he would have done with his life had he gone down that path. He would have been dead by now, maybe, he said. He kind of said something along those lines. Had things turned out differently, he could have gone down a very dark road, and I'm very happy he didn't. And fans or no fans, he feels invincible every single time he goes out there. Every time he goes out there to the ring. And he says, I'm no Rock, I'm no Stone Cold Steve Austin, I'm Braun Strowman. And that's the note they ended on. I thought this was fantastic stuff. I really did. I thought it was absolutely amazing. If you're not a big Braun Strowman fan and you want to see another side of the guy that we don't often see on TV, which he might be one of those characters where if he was himself on TV, it just wouldn't be interesting. But he's a really, really, really nice guy. Like I said, I got to meet him earlier this year. I interviewed him in July. Both times he was great. So yeah, definitely check out this Chronicle. Very eye-opening and further shows that you should not be just shitty to people. You never know what someone might be going through. So definitely be careful, be kind, and yeah, just be nice. Just be nice today and every other day moving forward. But yeah, check out this episode of Chronicle right now on the WWE Network. I give it 3 thumbs up. It was excellent. Be sure to check out all my other Chronicle reviews right here on WWE Network and Chill in the description box down below. It should be titled WWE Chronicle Reviews Playlist. You can check out all the other reviews there. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. And yeah, that's about it, guys. So take care. Have a great rest of your week/weekend. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.